Welcome to this episode of Stacks and Stories, the podcast of the Mississippi Library Commission. Join Lacy, Sharon, and Alex as they discuss Live 101, a professional development program for librarians here in Mississippi. They discuss what participants can expect, their best experiences, and how it has benefited them the most in their professional careers. Enjoy.
Hey everybody, today we are going to be talking about Librarianship 101 with several staff members here at the Library Commission. I'm Lacy Ellenwood. I am one of the library consultants in our Library Development Department.
I'm Sharon Davis, the Library Development Director for the Library Commission.
And I'm Alex Brower, and I'm the Information Services Director.
So Librarianship 101 started 20 years ago. And since then, we have educated 560 librarians. The goal of the program was to provide very basic, fundamental education to librarians who have never worked in the library before, whether they've had any education or training beforehand.
So my impression is that we get a lot of frontline staff. So it's people who, likely, more than likely, mostly 100%, did not get their MLIS. And like you said, haven't worked in libraries before. And libraries are, especially public libraries, are so different than I think a lot of even other customer service roles. And so we get the chance to kind of tell them about the history of libraries, right, and like how they're governed. We do a lot of like basic skills. I know Lacy talks a lot about customer service.
So the main goal with Librarianship 101 has always been to kind of bridge that gap between what some might call a professional level or knowledge of librarianship, which is somebody holding a degree. But here in Mississippi, we see that our librarians have a vast array of skills, education, but some of them may not have those fundamental things that we learn when we are in library school. So Librarianship 101 has kind of been modeled after like library school boot camp. You're not having to pay all of that money to go to library school, but you are getting a taste of what that could look like for you should you want to continue your education in this route, which we have had Librarianship 101 participants complete Librarianship 101 and then continue their own professional development and have gone on to be library directors that have worked in our state. And that has always been our goal, I think, at the Library Commission, is to internally build up staff within Mississippi that want to stay and continue to work in Mississippi. Because I think sometimes that can be hard for people to be like, well, why would I come and work in Mississippi? Why should I stay here? What are public libraries in the state? And I think the work that we do in Librarianship 101 really shows frontline staff people that what they do matters and that the Library Commission supports public library service and improving library service for all Mississippians through the work done by those frontline staff people.
They probably do not have a lot of co-workers there, like especially in the more rural.
Yes, some
libraries.
places you're the big boss in that library for the day, single branch places.
Yeah, and it can be incredibly lonely. And so this also, in addition to teaching people, all these important skills, it gives them the chance to network, which I think is always really beneficial. We feed people really well.
We always feed people well. Yes.
I had a phrase that I used when I worked in public libraries. When I interviewed people, they would come in nervous, and so many people would say, I know nothing about libraries, I just think it's a great job, or I worked in my high school library, for a little while.
I love to read.
Yes, I love to read, but one of the things I would say to put them at ease is, we don't expect you to come to us knowing how to do what we do. And if you are coming even from another library system, we might be doing things differently, just to put people at ease. But it's so true, because especially when you're in a smaller community or when you don't have a very high rate of pay that you're offering for entry-level positions, You want to get the best people you can, and you have to train them to be that. Librarianship is not a very broad field. There aren't that many of us.
Right.
So you just can't expect to be able to fill 3 frontline positions with people who already know exactly what they're doing. Yeah. But then there's also the challenge, once you do get a good hire, how much time do you have to train them, or are they hitting the ground running? How much of an explanation, how long of a time can you spend telling them why you're doing what you're doing every time you come across another portion of the work? So what Librarianship 101 does is it kind of takes that off of the administration of the public libraries and says, here, we'll do this for you. Give them to us for 3, sometimes 4 days, and we'll give them all of those basics they need to succeed.
And I think another thing that we should maybe touch on is like our experience at Lib 101, like how many times we've gone and presented, because I think we have a range here. I attended like as a participant my first year, that was 5 years ago, and that was my first year at MLC. I did go, I went to library school. I did my undergrad and my graduate in library science. And I worked at a public library for a brief time when I was in college. But going as an MLC person really gave me a lot more insight into the struggles and like the challenges that face a lot of public library staff. It really helped me connect to a lot of those people, and so now when I do go out and do those trainings, I do get to see, the same people who came through, who were in my group. We had really excellent discussions, excellent food. I just can't speak highly enough. I love pasta, and I got to go to Amerigo.
Like all library programs, if you feed them, they will have a good time.
Yes, absolutely. And it was really beneficial. And so I have tried to send my staff, especially if they haven't gone to library school, which is totally fine. That is some of the best librarians that I've met never went to library school, because you get so much excellent on-the-job training, and this gives a good foundation. But, getting to talk to those people, and then now, so I think I've gotten to participate every year since that first year. And, the second year was as a presenter. So I usually talk about reference when I go up there and talk, reference or Magnolia. And that is always a good time. One of my favorite parts of presenting is hearing about what people's weirdest question is.
Oh yeah.
Because people come to the library all the time and just ask random stuff.
People be getting weird out there.
Look, they do. It's my favorite. I love it.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm sorry I just monologued for a while on my experience, but I'd like to know how many times y'all have been and kind of what your experience has been with Lib 101.
Well, one of the things that's built into the program is sharing of experiences. That's very specifically done. And it's not just for them to learn from each other and network and meet other people who are sharing some of the struggles they're going to. It's just as important for us, for the ones who are teaching it as well, because as librarianship evolves, as it does, you wouldn't think so, but as librarianship evolves and the people on the front lines are facing new challenges or dealing with new technologies, we are just as much learning from them how to best support them and provide them what they need as we are teaching them fundamentals. So it's a win-win for both situations. I taught it back in 2012.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Oh.
Sharon was a presenter with Librarianship 101 before she recently came and joined us on staff here at the Library Commission.
Cool. So you've kind of gotten behind the scenes a little bit more.
It's been a while.
Yeah,
it's been a while. I looked through everything. I didn't see a photo of myself, so that's good. No photographic evidence of that really bad hairdo survived. Yeah.
One of the best parts, I think, about the Librarianship 101 program is it's meant to take staff that have already been working in a public library for a certain amount of time, and then they are selecting to gain more knowledge. They are invested. They're like, librarianship is for me. I want to improve on my skill set, or my director sees that I have talent in this area and would love to see me improve. That's really the beneficial thing about Librarianship 101. It's not just we'll train your person. It's that person has already made a commitment by working at that library system for a certain amount of time, so that that director knows that this is somebody to maybe continue to invest time in. And we like to say that they have a librarian heart. I know is a comment that's always typically made. And Sharon, you made a great point. Like, we can train the skills in people, but I don't think we can train people to have that service heart or that librarian heart that really makes positive impacts to library service at the local level, whether it's a homeschool parent that really connects with their branch librarian because they've helped them find a resource for their child, or a variety of other ways that librarians impact people every day in their communities.
How long have you been helping?
Oh gosh, I've been working at the Library Commission since October of 2012, so I missed the 2012 Librarianship 101, but every year since then I've been involved in some component of the program, whether it's doing, I do a lot of the customer service or user experience trainings. I've dabbled a little bit in the weed and collection development side of things. A lot of the staff here has been able to pivot and be able to fill in the needed areas when we haven't had external presenters, which I think has been a shift that we have seen throughout the time of Librarianship 101, is who we've had come in and do trainings and what those topics have been over the years.
Mm-hmm. So let's say somebody's listening to this podcast. They want to go to this more than anything in the whole wide world because they are like, oh my gosh, I want to be developed as a librarian. I want to do this. What's the application process like?
Well, you need to have been working in a public library in the state of Mississippi for at least 1 year.
Okay.
And your director has to nominate you. Mm-hmm. And you and the director both have to write letters and fill out an application. And then it's reviewed by Library Commission staff, unless we have way more applicants than we have spots, in which case we bring in someone else to do an additional review of the app.
So there's no favoritism.
No favoritism.
Don't give any of us $5 and ask if you can be in this year. I mean, I'll take $5, but I won't do anything. I won't promise anything.
No, not at all. But I think something we do need to touch on is what former attendees have said they have gotten from the progress. Mm-hmm. Because what we say is always going to be a little
skewed.
Yeah.
A little biased. We might be a little biased towards ourselves.
This is the Old Brags All the Time podcast, and we're just here to tell you all the good things.
Yeah. So I do have a few really good ones, a few really good statements. Now, I'm not going to say who said them because I don't know if anyone wants to actually be called out.
Just in case.
Sort of thing.
We're going to maintain anonymity.
Yes. So here's one I loved. I attended librarianship soon after entering the public library from another career field. And let me throw in, that is super, super common.
Yes.
It certainly helped me have a much better understanding of how and why libraries work, and greatly impacted my interactions with library patrons and staff. But I think that touches on very few people decide when they're children, I'm going to be a librarian when I grow up.
Yeah.
So many.
I know that wasn't me. I wasn't.
But especially like public libraries, frontline staff, I mean, it's very rare that someone comes in and they're like, I've wanted to be a librarian since I was 4 years old. I told my mom that when I was 4, by the way.
You are
the exception.
I'm stubborn. I'm really stubborn. That's what But we mostly, we get in people who sort of fall into the job.
Right.
And then they realize that's their love, that's where they want to be. They can see what kind of an impact they're having on their community. So that's good.
Because I think it's very different once you get into a public library. It's different than what you expect. Like, I think people think they know what's going on at a public library. They don't know. There's all sorts of stuff happening. So much more to think about, so much more to consider.
So another one is, The biggest impact for me was meeting people and establishing a network of peers in my field. And I think that's a hard thing to do when you're especially in a more rural state.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit easier now with, email and Zoom and things like that. But it's so easy to lose track of people or to never have met anyone at all who is in a similar position in a different library. And so 101 really helps establish some of those connections as well. Let's see. Oh, okay. This is a great one too. You want to read this one?
Which one?
Right there.
Okay. Attending this one?
Yeah.
Okay. I just got to make sure I'm reading the correct one. Attending Librarianship 101 and 201 made me view my job more as a career. Now, because of attending librarianship, I keep up with the changes made to libraries across the nation and in the world. And I love that because, again, it opens up the worldview for people to think about, oh, well, this library in a system next door to me that I've never encountered before, but I happen to have met that person at Librarianship 101 does something completely different, or they've given me an idea to improve service in my area. And so being in touch with what libraries are doing at a state level, a national level, and even at a global level can help us as librarians just kind of broaden our view and take potentially big concept ideas that you might not think are applicable in your service area and finding ways to kind of take that idea and make it a reality for your community and the population you serve.
There's usually a nugget in there,
100%.
Something that you can do, but you have to be able to. You have to hear it. You have to be exposed to that in order to make it really make it happen. And speaking of like having people think about this in a career and as a career, and then like long-term effects of this training. So we do ask that people do a project when they go back to their library. So I think a lot of trainings are kind of like self-contained. You go to the training, you learn the stuff. Maybe you think about it later, maybe you don't. Who can say? But this way, library staff have
there's a tangible.
Yes, there is a deliverable that they make. Has there been any like notable projects that you can remember, Lacy? Or you should?
A lot of projects, and that's projects can make our attendees feel a little nervous because it sounds like it has to be this big thing that you have to do when you go back to your library. It can be as easy as, oh my gosh, I learned how to weed. I've never done a weeding project before, which for those of you that are listening, weeding is exactly how it sounds. It's the removal of materials that no longer serve the needs of the collection due to a variety of reasons. But a project can be as simple as a staff person feeling empowered to now go back and weed a section of their library to make it more attractive to their population. Go ahead.
Well, for those people who are nervous about the project, we help them develop what they want to do. We ask them all the questions beforehand of what good is this going to do? What's the goal? What's the end game here? Is this going to actually make something better? And we also assign them one person to oversee their project here at the commission and sort of give them advice and help along the way. So it's not simply a, hey, you came here to see us for 3 days and now you've got to turn in a big assignment.
Good luck.
There's no deep end of the pooling here.
No one's getting thrown into the pool. No, it's a very simple one, or as elaborate as they want, but they do have guidance and assistance in getting that thought out and set up to make sure that it's actually effective.
And I think, like with most things, the most successful projects are ones that you're personally invested in and that you actually want to do. And so I think that's what we try to encourage our attendees to do, is to pick something that they're passionate about, that they've learned about that week.
And you can usually tell when people are really buying into what you're teaching. Not every group is always as invested as every other. I know this year we had a really excellent group. They were very, talked a lot, they answered all the questions. They wanted to learn. It was so nice. It's so wonderful to actually engage with people who want to be there and are excited to be learning. But yeah, it's not like that. It's not like that every year. But you know what? People are still learning. They're still taking stuff back with them, even if they aren't super excited when they're here.
I think we just had an extroverted crowd
Yeah.
this year, whereas in some other years we do have people that are more introverted and like to have more side conversations with us, more one-on-one than maybe being vocal in front of the group
Yeah.
or something like
Which
that.
is
Again, just
intimidating.
different communication styles and engagement styles. But nobody is getting really excited to do a project about library law, I'll tell you that. I tried my darndest to make that as fun as I could, but there was, I don't know. If we get one project, I'll be
Look, someone's going to follow up.
amazed.
Someone's going to follow up after this, and they're going to be like, that changed my life, Lacy. That changed my whole life.
learn about library law.
I'm a library
just
lawyer
changed
now.
my life.
What's that on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? Bird law?
Oh,
They're
gosh.
They're a library lawyer.
Well, we do have our first proposal in. It came in like 10
Oh.
minutes before I came down here. We do have our first project proposal in for this year.
Aw.
Good.
So I'm going to take a look at that and see who to give it to. We do have one more really great one.
Please share.
A really great response
I'll share.
here at the very last one. I think there's a typo in that.
There is, but I'm going to say it. I'm just kidding. Participating in the Librarianship 101 has really improved my professional life in many different ways, at work and outside of work. I was taught growing up, anytime you learn better, you should do better, and I really learned a lot of ways to do better while I was there in those classes. Right now, I'm still working at the library as a library assistant, and I think with me attending the Librarianship 101, I am more outspoken and more alert to what the patrons and the community needs.
I really liked that one because that one was it's more of an awareness, not just I'm going to work and I'm doing what I'm told to do,
Right.
but that I'm being aware of what people need when they come in, and more aware even when I'm not at work of what the community needs might be, which is what we really hope for.
Yeah.
It's really excellent. I love hearing all this warm and fuzzy feedback.
Isn't it great?
Is there any other super memorable, super interesting stuff about Lib 101? Just while we're here, while we're all gathered and talking into the void about Librarianship 101.
Every now and then, there are casualties in Librarianship 101. For example, I lost a beautiful pair of white cat-eye glasses one year during Librarianship 101 because we were staying off-site at a wonderful hotel outside of Jackson. I'm not going to name it because we're not going to plug things on the podcast. But I did happen to lose my glasses in the bottom of the pool, and I never found them, and I followed up multiple times. So hopefully there's somebody out there in the world that's wearing my vintage white cat-eye glasses, but they were a casualty of Librarianship 101.
If you do find those glasses that look like what Lacy's looking for, you can find our address on our website and follow
Yes,
up
please
there.
come by the Library Commission.
You're going to go to that hotel one day, and the front desk person is going to be wearing your glasses.
That would make me happy.
You know, I keep thinking about the 101 projects, and that's a really fun project, is all of the things that are lost in your library that people leave in books or around, as long as you blank out any personal information. Those make great displays.
I have seen those. Those are so cute.
I have too.
I wish our patrons left more interesting stuff in books because I would make one, but we have such good and conscientious patrons that do not leave any money in books. We need to find.
I was thinking more like who's like a pepperoni bookmark or something
I'm always
of that
excited
nature.
when I find like
Bacon.
$100.
Bacon, you've had bacon?
Oh, yeah, I've had something I shouldn't. I've had things that I won't. I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay.
We'll have a separate podcast about random things we found, and because there has to be a word for it.
I'm
there
sure.
has to be a word. I don't know what it is, but you'll find out on
Maybe
that
that'll be
podcast.
one of our icebreaker conversations for next year's Librarianship 101 is to put what's the weirdest thing you've ever found in a book or in your book drop or something of that nature. It could be.
It could be interesting.
Yes, very interesting, I'm sure.
Something else to look forward to is icebreakers. Because it's intimidating to come and meet with a group of people you've never met before and kind of put yourself out there and really engage in discussion. But those always work so well. And this year we had like big pads of paper that people could go around and like answer questions.
No one was asked. You were never asked to stand up and talk about yourself.
Right.
That is the most horrible thing you can ask a librarian to do.
You don't have to give a fun fact, because as soon as you're asked about a fun fact about yourself, everything you've ever done is gone.
It's gone.
Goes right away.
It's out the window. But I think one of the questions we had for this year's Librarianship 101 was about like a library memory, or like your first library memory or something like that.
First or most memorable library memory. We had some great ones.
Yeah.
Some very sweet ones.
All the traditional ones.
Well, if this has made you want to attend Live 101, if this has piqued your interest, do keep an eye out next year, closer to fall, to look out for the application, right?
Applications typically come out after the start of our fiscal year is in July, and so typically applications are released shortly after, within that month.
I believe it's in August, but I'm afraid I can't tell you for sure without looking at my
That's okay. I'll just say around like summertime. Like, just keep an eye out.
Well, but it gets sent to the directors. It doesn't really get sent to the staff.
It's the whole application process.
It gets sent to the
You don't get to come.
Typically, Librarianship 101 is held in the middle of September, depending on scheduling within our continuing education catalog, and the application is released several months before the middle of September to give us enough time to look at applications and send them out for external review if that is needed.
All right. Well, I am super excited about next year's Live 101. Thank you all so much for coming and hanging out with me.
And thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you for listening.
All right, hopefully we'll see some of you next year.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Stacks and Stories, the podcast of the Mississippi Library Commission. We hope you will tune in next time, and we encourage you to visit your local public library often.